Avoiding the very appearance of an impropriety or doing something wrong, it's important. In the Bible, Christians are told to avoid the very appearance of anything that's wrong or evil, to avoid it. Even if it isn't, to avoid it because it doesn't look good and it creates questions. In government, when I was doing finance, the OMB, the Office of Management and Budgets, had a clause that said the very appearance of an impropriety or wrongdoing was a chargeable offense, which could be fined and whose jobs be barred. So just the appearance of something being wrong. I talked to a legal expert about that once. He said one of the problems is when there appears to be a wrongdoing and the investigation then comes to the conclusion that there wasn't, people kind of believe there was a conspiracy. And so the need to keep things above board is paramount. And it's always been a long-standing process in business and in government and all kinds of areas of our life that the avoidance of the appearance of improprieties was a paramount concern. Just the appearance is something that puts into question. So when we start looking at things that go on in our government, in our churches, around the world, people see appearances of impropriety. And when nothing happens, that's going to cause conspiracies to really take off. And, there's nothing wrong with examining a conspiracy because it should be examined. Really, just because somebody says the word conspiracy doesn't make them a nut. Yes, there are some nut jobs I've met in my life who have all kinds of conspiracies that are way, way out there. But they have a right to it because maybe they've never had a proper um, expose to debunk the concerns that they have. So that's important that when we look at it, when the government does something that is questionable, then we have to say, well, what's going on in our government? And so just the appearance of somebody doing a wrongdoing can get them into trouble. I remember when I had long hair down to here and I had a hat and I carried a folding knife that was about yay big in my back pocket. And my dad was always on me that the appearance of you looking like a hoodlum is going to get you in trouble, which, back in the day, everybody had longer hair. And guess what? I went to a grocery store to figure out what I was going to make for lunch for my friend when he came back to his apartment. I came up to visit and spend the week, and he was working. So I was going to put together a good lunch because he's going to take an extended lunch. And I went to the store and got an idea of what I wanted. Went back, checked everything to see what I had, and then remembered that I needed to get some stuff for a salad. So I went back. So I've been in the store about 3 times that day, walking around. I first was taking down ideas, and the second time I was picking up some things, and the third time I came back for something that I forgot. Well, the manager, having seen me, called the police because there was the appearance that maybe this guy's not a good guy. And of course, I come walking out, and there's 2 police officer cars, and they want to talk to me. So I let them talk to me. What was I going to do? But the appearance that I was a bad guy, and of course, at that time, there had been a crime committed by somebody who had some longer hair and had been wearing a hat. It was taller than I was, and I wasn't in that town during that event. I had proof where I was. I was working on that day, and I'm talking to him. So and then because of that, the other officer, though, he was, well, he might be a suspect in this or that. And then a call came in that they had a suspect, a tall guy, um, longer hair, over at the airport. And the one officer turned and said, "You want to arrest him? He fits the description somewhat, but he's been with us." So I went home and I had to think about, what my dad said had some merit. And of course, when they asked if I had a weapon on, I said, well, I have a folding knife. And the guy's like, wow, how come such a big knife? Well, because my job requires me to use a knife, and the size is a good size for what I do. And so, uh, yes, it could have compounded into something really bad, but thank God it didn't. But there is a reason that people get concerned when they see something that's out of place or something that has the appearance of a concern. I think part of what we've learned historically is that if you're with a group of people that look like they might be going to cause trouble, um, you might not want to be with that group. My dad told me that a lot. And I've seen friends who got in trouble just because they happened to be with a group that was rowdy, even though they didn't do anything. So if the appearance of a wrongdoing can get you into some trouble, what happens when you start doing things that are very questionable and there's no real good answer? And so what we've seen in our last several years is a buildup of trying to show instability in our government, to make one side the bad guys and the other side the good guys, and vice versa. The war is going on, and there's a lot of appearance. So we see a narrative that's begun being built, and one of them is that the President Trump would not concede and let another transition take over. So that rumor started well in advance, and then of course the pandemic of mail-in balloting, which everybody has always said too much error, too much fraud. Both sides have said that, but because there's a pandemic in our state, there was going to be only mail-in ballots. I looked at the election results, and there were 0% mail-in ballots. Yet we all received ballots in the mail. Interesting. I looked at the number of registered voters and the actual votes. And if I look at the actual votes cast, it's almost identical to the number of Democrats and Republicans. And a third of our state is independent, non-affiliated. Where do those votes go? I get it, not everybody votes in elections, but there's some appearances of what's going on here. When you just look at the information that came out of the state, and you've watched how we shot up to 200,000 more voters from the year before, and then suddenly the amount of voters that we showed in October was almost 200,000 less than the actual registered voters on election day. Well, that would cause, concern, and there might be some good, legitimate answers, but because there's just an appearance of it. And one of the things that they talk about is lay people who don't understand certain things, if they see something that looks questionable, they don't want to have to go back in and re-examine it and redo it to bring them up to speed often. That's always been kind of the standard in business and government. Don't create something that causes the average layperson to be concerned about an impropriety. Interesting. So we hear a narrative. We've been primed for this election that it's not going to go well. We see gigantic leads cut, stop. The election process, counting of the ballots stopped. And then during the wee hours of the morning, votes disappeared and new ones appeared. That's an appearance of something wrong. It really is. And just because there's that appearance, it puts things into question. Now, there might be some legitimate answers, but right now, for the majority of people, that doesn't sit well. And not just with people who are lay people, but people who've been involved in election processes have had to say, that's just not right. Something's wrong. And then the fact that you have people who are supposed to be allowed to verify and be able to look at the votes to validate were forced way, way away where you couldn't see it. That's an appearance of an impropriety. So we have all these appearances of wrongdoing. Wow. Then we have suspicious activities. And then we have people with sworn affidavits coming forward complaining that wrongdoing and illegal activities took place. And then you have a news media that doesn't even want to touch those things and look at it. But there's an appearance that the established media, what they're calling the legacy media, ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, Fox, and even the newspapers, um, they're being controlled by who? There's an appearance that there's something nefarious going on. Just the appearance is a wrongdoing. Just allowing things to be unfair in the reporting. Just pushing a hardcore totalitarian narrative and doctrine and attitude and disenfranchising 70 some million Americans. And it could be far more than that. That's a challenge to our democracy. See, we should be having an open, fair, unquestionable democracy. If I was the candidate that's being projected as the winner, and I had faith that there was no impropriety, I'd be welcoming to put at rest those concerns so that the rest of the country, even those who didn't vote for me, could go, okay, that it's a legitimate and fair election. And while I don't like it, I'm going to get behind the president as much as I can and do what we can to bring as much unity to work together for the next 4 years to make the best of something I'm not really happy about, but I'm willing to. At this stage, it appears that they want to have civil unrest. They want an excuse to, no matter which way this turns out, to cause chaos and suspicion on both sides. Well, that's kind of how the enemy works, is you get the factions fighting amongst themselves, because a house divided will not stand. Abraham Lincoln quoted the scriptures that said a house divided does not stand. A nation divided cannot stand. And so we've always had some division in politics. You may view we should do it this way with more government, and I may view it that we should let private industry or nonprofits or others take that role because they can do it better. And we may disagree on that, but it shouldn't be the cause of burning our cities down, right? It should be we'll vote, and whoever gets the majority, we'll just tough it up and live with it. But now we're being told either toe the party line or you're going to be canceled. You're going to not be able to work. You're going to lose your job. Is that an appearance of an impropriety? That's an out and out, not appearance, that's an actual threat to our liberties that have been guaranteed. And laws have been passed that we can't, because of creed, religion, color, race, sex, etc., discriminate. And yet we're going to violate our laws. We're going to violate the Constitution in order to preserve democracy. Oh, wait a minute. Something is really rotten in DC. Something's really rotten in the media. You can scream and yell and now produce all that you want as evidence that there was nothing done wrong. And 70 some million Americans or more are going to look at you and say, we don't buy the lie. We don't believe it. And what happens when you have a large percentage of the people no longer happy? Unrest? Possibly. So we can see that this narrative has been well laid out. It's been in the making for several decades. There's a lot of push to get rid of the Constitution. Now, there's a problem with that, because when you take any kind of state or federal office, You are swearing allegiance to the United States and to the Constitution and the laws of the United States and to the Constitution and the laws of your jurisdiction. And when you violate oath of office, you're supposed to be removed. But that has not happened in so long. If we were upholding the Constitution and those oaths, we wouldn't be in the shape that we're in today. So I fault both parties for not upholding the rule of law and upholding the oath of office, which has become meaningless for many people. You're forcing the military, listen, you're forcing the military to defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Problem is, how many people in the military at what level are loyal to the Constitution? Are you going to be able to get young men and women who love this country and love their fellow citizens to confiscate their guns? Probably not. You'll have to get the UN to come in and do that. We're in a battle unlike anything we've ever seen. Call it a conspiracy if you want. That doesn't change the fact that something nefarious is going on. And the American public, the smart ones, who are no longer looking at the media as having the actual gospel truth anymore, began to question things. And conspiracies will continue to arise and gain popularity. And at some point, will this turn violent? It's already violent. We're already seeing so much being destroyed. Universities that are being funded by the communist parties of China and other places that are indoctrinating our kids to hate America, hate the Constitution. That shouldn't be allowed, but we do allow it. We have cancel culture, so you're not free to have your own thought, and you better not speak it, and you better not say I like that, even if you didn't say it. Now we're coming after people we don't like for whatever reason, and there's a lot of reasons to cancel another person out. It's kind of Nazi Germany from the left claiming that they're not the fascists, but they are. The left is dangerous, and anybody with a brain would have to say this is a dangerous ploy. Now they're not even trying to hide that they want to become a communist country. The VP nominee was telling us all how good it is. Really? Socialism sounds good to those who are trapped in the economic upheavals that have been perpetrated by overtaxation and sending our jobs off overseas. So yeah, they've been setting this up for a long time. Yeah, that's a conspiracy. I bet you it is. There have been conspiracies over and over throughout history. And the fact that they're a conspiracy doesn't mean that they're not legitimate truth. The fact is that they are conspiracies. So, what do we do about it? Well, first and foremost, I think all true Christians need to pray and pray as we've never prayed before. Pray that God will reveal things, open the eyes and hearts and minds of people. And then we need to get a hold of our elected officials and tell them you uphold the oath of office, you uphold the law of the land, or you need to be removed. And if you're not going to go after those who are threatening us, then you need to be removed too, because you've become the enemy of the people and of the Constitution of the United States. The left doesn't want a constitution. If they can get rid of it, and which they're working really hard to do that, then we don't have any God-given rights, and then we'll only have whatever rights the left want us to have, which won't be too much. You'll have the right to do whatever we tell you to do, and you have the right to die if you don't do it right. Well, that's enough for this rant today, but the appearance of impropriety is a crime in its own right. Whether or not you agree with that, that's kind of how we've always viewed it. And that's in the laws and in the rule books. Check it out.